Hello everyone and welcome back. It is round 16 of our second season here in F1 2019 and we are sitting third in the Drivers' Championship. It looks like Verstappen and Hamilton are kind of running away with the top two spots. Verstappen getting close to a position where he might be able to clinch the championship pretty early on. It's a pretty big gap for us to catch up to Lewis, so we're going to be looking to hold down P3, only about 11 points ahead of Leclerc behind us, and then Vettel is not far behind. But we pop in, take a look, and see one development completed, one failed. At this stage, though, we're not going to be repurchasing those failed upgrades because we now know which areas we need to adapt for next season's rule changes. We have a huge chunk of aerodynamics, 19 units in aero that need to be upgraded, and then another 9 total in engine. I think we've completed 5 of them already, so you can see still a lot of work to do to get this car rules ready for next season. And it looks like other teams are going to start flatlining off as well, but you can see for the rest of the season, if everybody lays pretty level doing those adaptations, look at how close the gap is behind Red Bull. We've got Mercedes, we've got Williams, we've got Racing Point, we've got Renault, and Ferrari and McLaren aren't even that far behind. So let's see, head out to qualifying and see what we can do in our second visit here.
Welcome F1 fans, where qualifying will be starting in the next few minutes as the teams prepare to get out on track at the Sochi Autodrome here in Russia. It always looked like the kind of track that asks an awful lot of the rear tyres, such as the frequency of low-speed exits.
Lots of low-speed exits means the rears are in for a lot of punishment. It's all too easy to spin them up coming out of a corner too aggressively. It might look great for us as spectators, as we love to see a car driven beyond its limits, but it's not going to result in a great long-run pace.
Alright, so here we are out on the track getting ready for our first flying lap around Russia, but you can see fourth gear is gone for us. You can see it skipping as we head up through the gears.
A mechanical issue means you've lost one of the gears. Say again, you have lost access to one of the gears.
So we still are going to try and bang out a banker lap here, but the gearbox was at 70% wear coming into this. I was worried this was the last race that gearbox was going to have to make, but we're having gear jam issues here in qualifying, so it is without a doubt necessary that we are going to have to take a 5-place grid penalty and change the gearbox for this race. So no matter where we qualify here, we're going to be headed down the field. So we're going to hop ahead to the tail end of the lap there to see where we can cross the line at. Gearbox issues throughout the entire thing. You can actually see a couple cars caught up to me there, but at the moment 1.4 seconds off Verstappen's pace. Now we're hopping back out for a second flying lap. We spent some time in the pits. Looks like the gear issue has temporarily fixed itself. I got access to fourth gear again on this this second run out, and you can see picked up a little bit of time there. But I am out on the older set of tires to try and save a set to make it through. But a much better exit out of that corner. You can see we're picking up about 2/10 there. A little bit of a corner-ish cut there, but we're close. We're still kind of edging on the curve, but end up picking up about 2/10 there. We'll see where we cross the line at 12th. So we managed to make it through into Q2, even while having the gearbox issue at the start there. Now, unfortunately, it bangs, session after session out. No time to change the gearbox in between Q1 and Q2. So kind of crossing my fingers and hoping stuff doesn't go badly here. But we're out on the mediums for the first run. Set a banker lap there. Out on the softs as we had fallen into the drop zone. But you see the timer in the top right. We got out of the pit lane just a little bit late. And it looks like a little bit of a timing and mental error is going to cost us our chance to get into Q3. Yes, the session is over. Only about 3 seconds late getting across the line. So P13 is where we're lined up on the grid, and we're going to be taking a 5-place penalty from there. So at this stage, fingers crossed, we'll see if anybody else has some issues, but we're going to be having to work our way through the field. Now, the plus side is we do have a choice of tire. And in the practice sessions, wear-wise, I had a great tire deg stat, so I was able to run a much softer compound.
Welcome one and all to the Russian Grand Prix. We're just a stone's throw from the Georgian border here at Sochi as we get ready to begin the race that served up an absolute cracker back in 2015. A last lap collision between Kimi Raikkonen and Valtteri Bottas sparked controversy in that race, so let's hope the racing is just as tight today. Situated just 3 miles from the Georgian border, the 3.6 mile Sochi Autodrome has 2 notable overtaking opportunities into turn 1 and then turn 13. 18 corners in total here, 12 to the right and 6 to the left, and it's an average lap speed of around 130 miles per hour. Alongside me once again for coverage of today's race, it's none other than the great Anthony Davidson. Why don't we kick off by discussing Max Verstappen? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Perez, Carlos Sainz, and Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Butler, Vettel, and Kevin Magnussen, Norris, Verstappen, Alexander Albon, and Ricciardo, Oldtimer, Gasly, Romain Grosjean, and George Russell. Stroll, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Lucas Weber completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Our grid position is not as high as we had hoped, but push hard in the race and hopefully with a bit of luck, we can finish with a positive result.
All right, so lucky for us, there was quite a few other grid penalties around us, so we end up netting only a 2-place drop over the course of the race here. We go from 13th down to 15th as opposed to dropping all the way to 18th. So still quite a bit of ground to fight through, but we are in a decent position. So we're going to go with our tried and true reverse tire strategy. Go start on the mediums, go on to the softs. And here we go. The lights go out and away we are. A little bit of a slower start, slightly harder compounds, and the AI is just quicker on starts than I am. So we're kind of looking for free space. We're going to look down to the inside. Keep an eye on the picture-in-picture at the top. You can see Haas cuts across, slams right into Gasly. We have to dodge our way through. Somehow we managed to get through unscathed. But even though we were ahead of Albon into the braking zone, for some reason the game considered our corner cut a illegal overtake of Albon, so we have to get out of the throttle to let him back through. But now we are getting back on the power here, trying to defend from George Russell behind us. And obviously in the early stages on the mediums, the softs are definitely going to be a lot quicker than us. It's just kind of a matter of hanging in with this group, but there's a pretty long train in front of us, so into heavy braking zones, they will definitely kind of accordion up and give us a chance at an attack as long as we can get some good exits onto these long straights. So here we are down the second DRS straight. No DRS this early in the race here. And it's not a totally straight. It's this kind of long winding S-bend, but we're going to go ahead and take a look. Everybody's braking early, so we're going to lunge it down to the inside. A little bit of lockup, but we're able to get the car slowed down. Dive up 2 positions into the corner there, get the apex, and get out of there. Get a little wide on the exit. The back end steps out on us, but we're able to keep it under control. So a huge lunge gains us 2 positions, and now the much quicker Max Verstappen, who's working on some grid penalties, is making his way past Magnussen, who is diving into the pits, most likely picked up some damage on that turn 1 incident. But here we are across, finishing lap 1, somehow clean, no damage to us. A little bit of a scary moment having to cut across the corner, but all in all, we survived that. So now we're going to go ahead and set our sights ahead and start trying to work our way through the pack here in this race and see if we can't get ourselves into a good position before making the switch onto the soft tires, and see if we can't work our way from a back of the grid kind of position into a good solid points paying spot. Now obviously our last race at Singapore did not go ideally. Some poor qualifying due to some rust netted us a pretty poor haul of points, and that allowed Leclerc to have a chance at getting at us, but luckily he is not too far out ahead, so he didn't get too much ground on us. We are, within a race at this stage, a win and a DNF from losing that position to him, so we definitely need to fight it back. And now you can see Albon catching up on us there, reeling us in, but we are going to do what we can to defend from him now as we kind of settle into the more rhythm-oriented part of this race. Verstappen, obviously much quicker than us at this stage of the race, jumping out ahead, chasing down the cars in front, so it's just a matter of trying to push ourselves on these medium tires until they start to theirs start to degrade and we can start to reel in some of those soft tire runners. Now it's interesting. It's not a strategy you particularly see very often in the real world, this reverse strategy, the medium onto the soft. You almost always see because most teams have to qualify onto the softs to make it to Q3, but they just tend to not run medium onto soft. They usually do medium hard. But we hop ahead, lap 5. Verstappen's made his way past Grosjean. We're going to dive around the outside, get the good overspeed through the DRS, and make it through. But we run this kind of reverse strategy, as I've spoken before, to put us on the fastest tire while the car is at its lightest. I mean, when the pack is more bunched up and we have more opportunity to draft and get the toe and catch some slipstream, I plan to run the harder tires, and then if I'm running in clean air by myself, running the softs will help me make up ground on people that are running those mediums that they're switching onto, or the hards, depending on what their strategy is for this race. But typically try to avoid, personally, 2 stoppers whenever possible. I'm not quite so skilled that the difference between my hustling the car tire deg and just racing to good lap times tire deg are about the same, so there's no big difference in pushing the car super hard. But we hop ahead a couple more laps, sandwiched between Albon and Butler, who Albon is kind of reeling his way into us right behind us. We get a poor exit as he is now going to have DRS on us, so we are going to crank up the DRS a little bit, but we're going to go side by side as we come down into the braking zone for this tight right-hander, but he's able to get well clear of us, so we are going to try and set ourselves up for the switchback in the next set of corners. Not quite a good enough run through that corner, so we're going to have to kind of settle our way in and see if we can't catch him on the next DRS straight. But again, the rear end stepping out big time on us. That little left-hander kind of comes over the crest of a hill, so if you're a little too aggressive on getting on the throttle there, that you see exactly what you saw there, some sweet drifting action. The back end steps way out, but smooth on the power here down the main front straight, and we're going to pop open the DRS and make a move on Albon here. He pushes us wide all the way out onto the curbing runoff. Luckily, there's a little bit of a gap between the curbing and the wall there, so we're able to get it through fairly cleanly and not get shoved off the track entirely into a position where we're going to get wrecked into a wall. But we managed to make that one stick, and now we got to try and focus on clearing that 1 second gap to him so he doesn't have DRS to attack us again. And now if you look just ahead, there's quite a big pack. It looks like on the mini-map, the blue dot of Verstappen, it looks like to have made his way through that pack. So he's fought his way. Or that might be Giovinazzi at the top of the pack. I think if you look just ahead, you can kind of see in front of the Ferrari the Red Bull livery up in the kind of lead section of that pack. So he's almost all the way out of there. Yeah, right behind the McLaren. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and push ahead. Not quite in DRS range, but these guys are definitely going to be fighting and battling and going to be slowing each other up. So that's going to give us a chance to really reel in. This time we had plenty of gap to Albon, who did have DRS, but not enough to reel us in that time around. Let's see the amount of steering correction getting on the throttle through that corner, trying to avoid swinging the back end out. But here we are. We've kind of closed up to Butler and Norris. They're starting to string out this little group again. Carlos Sainz as well, the other McLaren. So we just need a good exit off this corner here, and we'll be able to attack Butler into the DRS zone. He will have DRS as well, but we'll be able to tuck into the slipstream. And thanks, Jeff, for giving me a new strategy that is my old strategy. New strategy, pit lap 16 for softs. Old strategy, pit lap 16 for softs. So great work, Jeff. Real champ at the out-of-the-box strategy thinking. But I'd rather confirm it now and make sure he understands that I'm going to come in there rather than him make a mistake for us. But an easy pass of Butler down the DRS straight there. He's able to kind of let Albon through as well. So he's going to kind of hang on through the back end of us. But now we got to chase down the 2 teammates of the McLarens in front of us, and then we'll start reeling our way into the Red Bull. If we can kind of keep pace with Verstappen, I think that's going to put us in position for a decent finish on this race. And with the championship starting to get to mathematical completion levels, Verstappen is not really wanting to have a race this far down the grid. If he can string off a couple of wins, it would pretty much lock up the title for him well before hitting even the American stretch of the season, the closing stretch of obviously you've got Mexico, the USA, and Brazil, the North and South American stretch. But here we are right up behind the 2 McLarens. Now a little bit of a lockup into the braking zone. I think at this stage the soft runners are starting to lose some grip on their tires, and the mediums are starting to gain a little bit of an advantage with their extra bit of life there. I felt like I was starting to gain a little bit in corners, but tight up on the back end of them here as we swing through DRS open, try and pick a spot to make a move. So we are kind of far back, but we're going to go ahead and send it, get just alongside, and just eke our way through. From about a car length and a half back, we managed to get on the brakes just late enough to get through Lando Norris. He had great speed on the straightaway, getting DRS off of signs there and getting some slipstream, but we were able to get just a bit later on the brakes, even without the lockups. We pretty much nailed it there, and now we are chasing down his teammate Carlos Sainz. And that's Verstappen just ahead of him, and then it looks like we've got Giovinazzi. Is it? No, that's a something else. It looks like a Red Bull livery for a second. Nope, it's a Ferrari. So we've got a Ferrari and an Alfa up ahead, but we are into the next DRS zone. Not close enough to really make an attack. Kind of a poor exit. There's some squabbling going on ahead of us. We're just going to use DRS to stay in front, but they kind of tightened up on us as we hit that braking zone, so we're able to make a lot of that ground back up here. And just kind of gingerly on the throttle through that sweeping left-hander. Very easy to step the back end out. Definitely cost myself a couple of front wings in practice during that, because once the back end goes, but luckily instead of having to fight our way through Sainz and Verstappen, they dive in. So it looks like soft runners are now coming in for the pits. There's a Mercedes getting a tire change there. So as we cut through, we're going to hop ahead lap 13. All the soft runners have made their way through. We've inherited the lead, and Sebastian Vettel has had a mechanical DNF. You see in that sweeping long flat left-hander, the yellows flags ahead. So unfortunately, his day is done. There's now only 18 cars running. Luckily, only one car was DNF'd by the actual wreck at the start, but there was more damage. So hop ahead a couple more laps. Lap 16, it's time for us to follow Jeff's advice and come in and get our soft tires. So we had some good clean air running at the front of the pack here. We'll see where we come out. We had a fair lead over the leaders, but a long pit lane. You can see them just coming out of the corners there. The 2 Mercedes, a Racing Point, and a Ferrari. And Sergio Perez has really turned it on at this stage of the season. I mean, once the Racing Point got up in development, I think Sergio Perez might be one of the strongest driver AIs on the field, on par kind of with the Lucas Weber level. I mean, is a real monster to deal with. But here we are out on our fresh soft tires. Luckily, we were able to keep some fresh ones because we made the mistake in Q2. Didn't have to run a set too hard. So we come out P8, so not a bad spot, and it's we got 10 laps to go. Try and chew our way through as much of the field as we can. We are on the tire advantage here. You can see Verstappen's on the hards, whilst we are on the softs. So we're going to take advantage of what we've got, and we've turned the fuel mix up to the rich. We were about a half lap over target, so I wanted to burn off as much of that weight as soon as I got out of the pits as I could, and see if we can't make a move getting past Verstappen here. Let's see, we might be in, not quite in DRS range. So we're going to settle down, let our ERS charge up, keep it in that medium. Luckily, with our power unit development so far this season, we've hit a point where we very rarely need to use the low ERS deployment. As you see, we go purple in Sector 2, the fastest time in Sector 2. Obviously, no real chance at setting fastest lap on this one because of the time we lost in Sector 1 due to the pit stop. But a good opportunity. But as I was saying, the ERS recharge developments allow us to not have to run the low mode. We basically run in medium to slowly increase our charge, and we can run in high pretty much all the time now. So we are going to head through, turn up the ERS, get the DRS open as we swing around the little right-handed kink to go to the outside of Verstappen. Tremendous overspeed. We're well clear of him into the braking zone. He just slots in behind. And now is where we're going to let our soft tire advantage really come in as we head into this next section where there's a bunch of 90-degree kinks. A lot of braking zones, a lot of throwing it into the corner and getting it around as hard as possible. We've got the Alfa Romeo of, might be Raikkonen in front of us. I think number 7 is Kimi. Not exactly sure where Lucas is at this stage of the race, but it doesn't matter who is driving in front of us. Our entire goal is to catch and pass anyone and everyone that I can at this stage of the race. I'm looking to try and fight my way through the field back up to a podium position from a P15. So if we can make that work, I mean, a top 5 would also be stellar. I'd be happy to pick up 10 positions in a race, but we are in DRS range, open DRS. That is Kimi Raikkonen. We're going to look to the inside here. Not quite enough. We're going to think better of it, but we are going to swing wide, get a little better exit out of that corner. Not a traditional passing zone, but we are able to use the advantage of the softer tire there to adjust our entry, to compromise the entry into that corner to get a better exit. And that makes us smoothly through into that braking zone. So here we are, hopping ahead, lap 23. Giovinazzi is making a move on Hamilton as they fight in front of us, slowing up through the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and dive up, pull side by side with Hamilton, and now it's just a flat-out race. He's got the inside line, so he's going to have a little bit of a shorter run. I've got good grip around the outside with the softs, but we're just able to get on the brakes in front of him and make that pass through, battle through a couple of corners. Giovinazzi really held him up, gave me the opportunity to pull alongside and fight with him. And so now we are going to just kind of settle our way in. Giovinazzi on medium tires on the slower set. We are on lap 23 of 27 here, so about 4 more laps to go, but we are going to be definitely in range in the next DRS zone for another attack on him. So we should be able to make our way past the other Red Bull. Now, Max Verstappen did have some mechanical issues throughout the early stages of this race. He was still cutting his way through the midfield, but definitely had some issues. We go around the outside of the kink to get into the braking zone nice and early before Giovinazzi there and settle it in. So Verstappen definitely didn't have the race he was hoping for. Engine penalties setting him back at the start, and then mechanical issues. They were resolved by this stage of the race, but mechanical issues that really kept him from being able to cut his way up to the front of the field on the soft tires that Red Bull really loves. I mean, I don't think there's really any car that goes faster on the softs than Red Bull. They're a little bit more down to earth when it comes medium to medium, but on softs, those Red Bulls are an absolute a terror. And it looks like Giovinazzi's kind of turned his season's woes around a little bit. He's had some better results, but here we are. We've got Bottas and Leclerc fighting in front of us, and Sergio Perez leading the race with a pretty comfortable margin up ahead. So as those two scrap ahead of us, that's 2 spots of the podium right in front. Our move past Giovinazzi got us into P4. So you can see based on our sector split times at the top there, the soft tires are definitely starting to fall off. We're losing time compared. So we're going to be really trying to, make it while the sun is shining, trying to put in some good effort here until we fall behind what the performance level of those mediums are, because we are faster through the large majority, but once we hit that tire cliff, it's going to be a real problem trying to keep pace with them. But you can see Bottas going around the outside of Leclerc with the DRS. We are again going to get right up behind. We're going to go ahead and make the same move that we made on Raikkonen, dive to the inside, cut the inside of the exit a little bit. A little bit of a lockup. We go way deep, end up kind of pushing Leclerc out wide, unfortunately, but we managed to get past him. Not our cleanest maneuver. That as soon as that front tire locked up, there was really no turning. It was just the car was going to go straight. So unfortunately, we kind of edged him towards the edge of the track. We were able to recover and not wreck into the wall there, but We are up on the podium now, P3, and we've got DRS on Valtteri in front of us, so we're going to see if we can make a run into turn 1. We've got the slipstream. We're going to go inside, outside. We're going to look outside. A little bit of braking on the curbing. We're going to use the extra grip of the soft tire to go around the outside and just make it through. So very hairy trying to get on the brakes as late as that whilst being pushed out onto the curbing, but we managed to make it work. You see those tire wear in the firmly yellow stage now, so we're going to get close to hitting that performance cliff. 2.8 seconds behind Sergio Perez, lap 25 of 27, so about 2.5 laps to go in this race. We'll see at the next sector split if we're making any headway on him and see if we have an opportunity to chase him down over the last stages here and try and get our first race win of our career. But in addition to that, we do have Valtteri right behind us with DRS. We take a little peek, crank up the ERS, try and move inside, outside to break the toe a little bit. Not enough ground for him to catch up there as we're, you see, 1.5 seconds down at the Sector 2 split from our best time and not really gaining too much ground. We are only about a corner behind Perez. We see him disappearing around the next corners pretty frequently. But we'll see what happens when we cross the start-finish line if we are able to make any ground in Sector 3. Sector 3 is a real telling point for tire performance differential because it's just a bunch of right-angle corners. 2.6 seconds back, not really making any ground on him, so our focus is realistically going to turn to behind us. You see Bottas still has DRS open, so it's going to be a matter of defending our position, not allowing him to catch us in those DRS zones. On the balance, the tire performance is pretty similar between the old softs and old mediums at this stage. The tire cliff is definitely starting to kick in for me and really having to fight some understeers. You see I go wide on the exit there. But you can see it's just tantalizing. Sergio Perez is basically just like a corner ahead of me at every stage around this track, and it's just not closing the gap at all. But hopefully you can see as we head through some of these corners, hopefully Leclerc and Bottas will scrap within themselves and take some pressure off of us. Looks like they might. You see Leclerc step into the outside there. We'll see, can he make a move? It looks like they're still fighting side by side behind me there. So that's definitely going to allow me to open up a gap. It looks like Leclerc has finally made the pass stick and got around Valtteri. So now he's going to be trying to make a move on us, but luckily they're extended. Scrap through a couple of corners gives me an opportunity to open that gap up, and now this, I believe, is the final lap starting there. And we're just a little bit too far back of Sergio Perez, still about that right around 2 seconds behind, not really making any ground. Wow, Bottas is under attack from Giovinazzi as well. So something happened that he's losing tons of pace and ground on, and not able to keep his car in front, and looks like he's fallen right off of the podium, unfortunately. Yep, and now that Red Bull has made its way through the two Mercedes and caught his way through. That's only P4, so no Red Bull on the podium, it looks like, so far today, unless he can make a last lap lunge on the Ferrari. But right now we've got Perez leading the race, myself P2, and it looks like Leclerc might come in P3, so we are going to pick up a little bit more points on Leclerc in that battle for third in the Drivers' Championship standings, although he's keeping it right near us, very close to us at all stages, so it's not going to be one that we're going to necessarily run away with, I think. Here we get out of the throttle, counter steer, try and save the car, almost a mistake out in the final lap there. Really just kind of easing it. The tires are spinning up out of every low speed corner, but we do have enough of a cushion to Leclerc to keep ourselves safe as we understeer way wide off. Nice and easy through the final corner, get on the throttle, and come across P2 back on the podium.
My friend, top job. I was a bit worried about this one at the start of the weekend, but you pulled through. Thank you.
That That was brilliant stuff from Racing Point today. What a superb victory. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
The Racing Point team will be very happy with today's performance and the final result. Another display of excellent driving and excellent teamwork, and a well-deserved first-place finish. So let's review the updated driver standings. This result narrows the gap between our championship leader and the rest of the standings. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
I have to give it to Old Timer. There was a lot going on all down the field, but they were the only one who I really felt maximised their potential.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. Meanwhile, good work from Racing Point this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
So amazingly, the only DNF in that horrific scrap at the start of the race was Pierre Gasly. You see, we picked up the fastest lap point, which is needed because it's only a 3-point difference between second and third, picking up 18 versus 15 points. So that extra point gives us 19. Racing Point is really kind of starting to make their way up the table in the Constructors' Championship as well, thanks to Sergio Perez's strong results there. But he somehow snags a win.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. You gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the car was nimble, light. I was able to make it into some corners that
Everything
most people
went your
weren't
way
passing
today.
in.
It looked like you had a really good strategy for the race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good strategy, and the car managed the tires really well.
You're surpassing all expectations. Can anything or anyone stop you?
I mean, not with this team behind me right now. I don't think so.
Do you have any comments about the collisions?
No comment. It was hard racing. We're just kind of battling. One was a
Appreciate
little
your time.
lockup. No big deal. But here we are, another 4 races down. Time for another contract negotiation. Keeping it kind of simple this time. I mean, basically going to set my expectations and my perks to exactly what it was last time. I mean, we obviously want the resource point bonus, and then the pit stop bonus is going to be kind of important. We want to reduce the upgrade time, but one proposal nailed it right on there. But I mean, realistically, I kept the same deal I had before, and that'll be pretty solid. So we got about 1,200 R&D points to play around with at this stage. Well, not play around with. We know exactly what we're doing. But first, we're going to go ahead and pick a rival for the what will likely be the rest of the season. I was kind of taking a pick. For some reason, none of the Racing Point boys are in there. I was going to pick Sergio Perez since he seems to be the next man up, really performing very well. So instead, I think I'm going to go ahead and go with my nearest opponent in the driver's standings. Go with Charles there. So we'll see how we can shake it out the rest of the season. So now it's time to click the orange things. Spend a bunch of our R&D points on stuff that needs to be adapted. My theory here is just let's try and finish off a department and move on to the next one. We'll be pretty much able to do almost all of the engine. Not enough R&D points to get the last major upgrades. We should be able to finish that one off next race. So we are going to spend the remaining little bit on some of the minors in Aero and start making some headway on there. But really, we've only got what, 4 or 5 races left to go, and we've got a lot of things to adapt. So it's possible we're going to have some negative development at the end of the season there. You see, take a peek at the wear of some of our components. Unfortunately, we had to take that grid penalty with the gearbox. Hopefully, we're able to make it to the end of the season. But otherwise, it depends on what it's like when we hit Abu Dhabi. It might be a situation where we don't need that gearbox. But I will see you guys next time. Thank you. Peace out.